It's the morning after the weekend before, and all through the house, you could hear nothing but a peep from a mouse. Oh, fucking hell, today's episode's going to be an interesting one because we are both deliriously tired.
It's gotten really weird already.
It's already got really weird. So we're just back from Sydney. We were in Sydney for the last, how many days, Leigh? Was it 4 days? So we got there Saturday.
4 days. Yeah, Saturday.
So we're there Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and literally every hour, pretty much, apart from sleep, was planned. So we did a massive weekend, and it's probably the last weekend of the year that we're going to be doing out of Melbourne, and the last weekend of the year in terms of all of our education for 2023. So yeah, how are you feeling this morning, Leigh?
Yeah, I feel good. Like you just mentioned, a little bit tired, but not I don't feel exhausted. I think it's just more, just catching up for the last few days, just not, cutting out a couple hours sleep and that kind of stuff. But I feel good. I feel regulated. I feel good. I think we're living fairly healthy lifestyles these days, and that helps for sure. Not drinking, not doing whatever we might have done once upon a time. I think that helps massively. So yeah, I feel good. I'm optimistic. I'm regulated.
Nice. About the worst thing that we did over the weekend, probably the worst thing we did for our health over the weekend. Well, you didn't do it, I did. I had a pizza pretty late one night with Hannah, and that's probably the worst thing that I did for my health. But I feel pretty good, yeah. And this podcast is going to be coming out about a week, 10 days after the trip, and it's been on the tip of my tongue for months now to speak into something that has been a long time coming, and I've been waiting because of Men's Hairdresser of the Year, and I obviously didn't fucking win that, did I? So that would have been a nice cherry on top of the cake, which was my hair career. So yeah, long story short, I've retired. That's it. I'm done. I'm out.
So long, farewell. So long.
Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. But yeah, I was going to put a post out about it yesterday, which would have been last week by the time you listen to this, and I wanted to wait and do it in this format and have a bit more context and speak into it a little bit more, because even though I say I've retired, in the context that I have done it up until now, so meaning that I don't do clients anymore, I've removed the money from it. So it's funny because today, right, today we got a few of the younger barbers putting their prices up and putting it online, and it's I'm all here for it, but I feel like it could be worth putting up. Here's my new price list. I actually thought about this over the weekend. Here's my new price list. Swipe to the right, and it's fucking $0. I don't charge for hair anymore.
How long have we been speaking about that though? We've been speaking about that for years. I remember back in the day when $100 seemed expensive to people, and we were some of the first people to do it. And because when things are new, there's fear, isn't there? And clients are a bit fearful, and they're like, well, how much is it going to go up? What's it going to get to? And we would always say, our ultimate price rise is down to $0. And they're like, what do you mean? And even then, we were talking about that 3 years ago, and that just shows the kind of mental journey that we were on. It's right, I want to get my life to such a point and such a level of freedom that I can take the transaction out of hair and just do it as a bit of fun and a connection piece, and not have to charge for it. And here you are.
Yeah. So the average lifespan of a hairdresser these days Leigh actually filled me in on this one during one of our classes once, is 8 years. So 8 years is the average span of a career. And my career has been almost exactly 8 years in the context of doing it for clients. And for the last kind of year and a half or so, I've probably only been doing like, you know, a couple of clients a week here and there and having big time chunks away from it. So it's been a gradual process. It's not like I went from doing, you know, 40, 50 haircuts a week in the barbershop to just complete cut off and being like, no, I'm not doing it anymore, I'm retiring. It was a very proactive approach with a really solid plan behind it. And, you know, when we discussed doing men's hairdresser of the year earlier this year, it was more of, I guess, just like a send-off piece. You know, it's like, okay, this is the last thing that I'm going to do, and fingers crossed we take out the trophy, and it's a nice way to kind of wrap it up, essentially. Because it's funny, you know, after the awards, you know, didn't win, it was like, oh, you know, you just got to keep going, or you got to go again next year. And it's like, in my head, I'm like, no, like, I'm not going back to do that again. Like, it's just not in the scope of where I want to take my life. It's just not in my plans. It's just not in my plans. That's just as simple as it gets, really. What I want to focus on moving forward is more full-time in the education space, but also, you know, even transitioning that down to a small piece of the pie and work more so in the mentorship and coaching side of the industry, and do a lot less, essentially. Just keep doing less and less and less, but receiving more when it comes to joy and fulfillment. And yeah, I don't know, I'm just nothing really excited me about the awards. Like, even when I was there, I had this kind of anxious feeling, like, going into the awards night and waiting for the award, and when I didn't get called as the winner, there was almost like a sense of relief. It was like, oh, I don't have to receive this attention now for something that I don't really, and for lack of a better word, for something I don't really care about. I remember in the network podcast, we spoke about this years ago, and I was like, back then I put it out there to the universe saying that I'll never enter an award again. Probably jinx myself because I call a lot of things into reality. And, you know, I'm going to be honest. I was shocked that I didn't win. Like, if I looked at all of the collections and I saw them all next to each other, you know, it's like, how could I have done a better men's collection? I might have been able to get one of the images, there's a couple of things, that we might have been able to do. But it's just a sign, isn't it? Maybe it's just not meant to be. I'm not meant to go down that route and be in that side of the industry. It's not where I can best serve people, is by showing them how good I can do hair. I don't care for it. It's just not in my plans. It's not in God's plans either.
God's plan. It was such a beautiful collection, and a lot of the people we spoke to, you know, I don't think we've come across one person that didn't say, wow, it's the most beautiful collection in there. You know, I'm surprised you didn't win. Even the people that, you know, people high up that probably have a say in this stuff were like, wow, we really thought you were going to win. But what I see coming up there, just hearing you speak and knowing you the way that I do, is like, you know, this is why I love the way we talk about creativity. Your creativity is evolving now. And what I see in that is, that's not how you get your creativity out anymore. Because I think about this, like, it's just a creative outlet, but that's not your outlet anymore. It doesn't serve your, you know, constitution, your being high enough just to go and put out some haircuts, because the utility of it and what's on the other side doesn't serve your mission and your purpose. What's on the other side is a trophy and some judgment, and then carry the weight of trying to be the lead person in men's hair. Whereas where your creativity is now, just from an outsider's point of view, is the way that you think. And your problem solving, and what's on the other side of that is less judgment, is more subjectivity, but on the other side is helping people. And that is much more aligned to your purpose, or our purpose and our mission, which I think is beautiful. And look, we could have still help people through the hair, and the awards would have been great, would have been a great marketing piece for all of our education. And we do still, that is only one form of the way that we help people. But I think that's where everything's going for us, is helping people on a deep level. And that's where I kind of see the energetics of that is not quite aligned. And that's absolutely fine. Is maybe never to say it won't happen ever again. Who knows where life's going to take us. But right now, okay, that's the end of that era, really. And yeah, it's all perfect. You know, we've said it so many times over the weekend, but it's perfect. It's the sign from the universe saying, just giving you a little nudge, you know, keep going in that direction and help people the way that you know best, the way that feels best.
Yeah, I think like my creative side when it comes to hair is done. It's finished. Like I don't want to pursue that side of the industry anymore. It's not doing anything for me. And even like we went and did, you know, throughout the weekend we did main stage, which was pretty cool. And then we did our 2-day creative mastery course, which pretty much like Leigh did the most of it, like at least 80%, 90% of the course, Leigh delivered it. And I just didn't feel like, it's not how I best serve anymore. It's not like doing anything for me. So I'm not going to try and force it. And for me to stay going back doing like more photographic competitions and hair competitions and stuff like that, it just doesn't serve where I want to go with my life. It's just not how, like you were saying, Leigh, it's not how I get my joy anymore, you know, coming up with new ideas and helping people. And that's not to say that I don't want to be involved in the hair industry and like the space that we're in, because I feel like even if you look at our 3-day course, where we deliver that, we give people the tools to get creative in their own time. Like you can get creative in your own time, but you need to know these foundations, these fundamentals. And this is going to also open you up creatively in other avenues, not just through cutting hair, but also in your business and how you see the world. And it's more of a mindset course these days than it is a hair course. So like that is where I feel like things are going for me. And, you know, it's nice to have the interconnected worlds. Like we can still bring the creativity into it and we can still do all of that. And like you were saying, I love that, like who knows where life will take us. We might end up doing it again at some point. And I don't know. I just don't feel like, for me personally, it's not where I want to go with my life. And you know, I hate saying it, but they're not the rooms that I really want to be in, you know. And I loved being in the room with the Dyson team, and I love working with Dyson. They're a great company to work for, purely because of the way they think as well. They see things in a lot different. They see things differently to every other brand that I've witnessed so far in the hair industry, because they're just thinking on a different level. Like it's a new way of operating, you know. Not one company that I've worked for and with throughout my 8 years in the industry has come even remotely close to the way the Dyson are operating. Like, we're probably as close as it gets. And that's being honest, in terms of how high level we're thinking about it and how organized we are. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. I love it. And that's it. That's just where I see, your creativity and mission and purpose. And I love that. I think that's a really important thing for people to think about is, you know, what does bring you the most joy? You know, what's going to bring you the best feelings in your life, what's going to serve that, what's going to help that. It's just, this is not a knock on anyone, but it's more of an observational thing in terms of where my helping mind goes. Is, there was an award accepted, and all that was spoken about in the acceptance speech was like how hard it was and how stressful it was and how much anxiety it brought to get them to that point. It's like, is that the best use of your time? And is that the best thing you can be doing for yourself? Because if it was that hard and brought that much stress and that much anxiety, are you losing yourself in the pursuit of just trying to get the trophy to appease the opinion of others and leaving yourself behind in that moment? It doesn't have to be that hard, and it doesn't have to be that stressful or filled with anxiety. Now, we had this conversation on the weekend. Maybe that's the journey that person is going on to learn their life lessons. Maybe that's just what universe has delivered. We all know that human adults learn best through pain, unfortunately, and maybe that's the levels of pain they've got to go through to find a better way for themselves, and to turn that, if they win again, to turn that acceptance speech into, wow, I enjoyed every moment of this journey to get here. And that to me, that just would feel so much better in the heart. And that's net positive, empowering, right? We talk about this all the time in our classes, empowering versus disempowering in all things that we do in our life. To get up on that stage and hold a trophy half broken, oh, it was so hard, and it's full of anxiety and full of stress. Empowering or disempowering? This is quite disempowering, if you ask me. Energizing or not energizing? Not energizing. And that's where we're gauging our life. Is I would rather not live like that. I'd rather not lose myself in the pursuit of trying to just get something for the opinion of others. And as we know, acknowledgement is one of the things that humans need, and sometimes we'll claw our way to get it at all costs. We will just claw our way to get it, and then get it, and then it's like the arrival fallacy, just fall off the edge of the cliff and wonder why we're still not happy. Because we're relying on the external world to try and change our internal world, which often doesn't happen.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely spot on. And the interesting thing there is that the better that somebody gets at something, and this is generally speaking, and from my experience, the better that I've got at something, the more people would throw their opinions into the mix as to like what my future should look like or what I should do with my life. If I listened to that, if I really listened to like what everybody else wanted for me, then I would never be truly fulfilled, regardless of the accolades that I achieved. Because everyone in that room would say, oh, Baron, you're amazing at hair, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you should go again for men's next year. And it's just like, no. You could be the best in the world at something, and doesn't mean that you enjoy it. Like I've witnessed this in cycling too. Like I've some of the best cyclists in the world, and they're fucking depressed, taking, sleeping tablets when they come home from training just to get through the days. Like, all sorts, addicted to everything just to distract themselves from the fact that they hate the life that they created so much, but they're stuck in it because they're so good at it. And that, I see it also now happening in the hair industry. So for me, I just don't get my joy from that anymore. I get it from helping people to do it in a more positive way. Because this is the thing, right? I still cut hair. Just because I don't do transactional clients, I still cut some hair, but it's on my terms. I design my life how I want to live. And a lot of the time it's for no money. It's for bartering. It's like I'll cut my PT's hair. I'll cut my myotherapist's hair. I'll just cut a friend of mine's hair and exchange no money. But if they want to give me money, I don't care what that amount is, but I almost feel like I'll be doing them a disrespect if I don't receive it. So sometimes I just take it if they really push it, and it's like, okay, this conversation ends here. I'll just take the money. I just don't want to go on about it anymore. But the point is like, you know, I've had thousands of opinions over the years in my career up to this point. People telling me, literally telling me, not asking me or suggesting it to me, telling me that this is what I should be doing and this is what you should be doing and this is who you should be learning from, and shoulding all over me. So that's kind of one of the things to be aware of, as like, when you do win these awards, it's like, what then? Like, is that other people writing your future for you? Is that other people writing my future for me? What if I did win Men's Hairdresser of the Year? What then? Like, would I have to do a lot of different activations for the next year, which would actually take me away from my real mission and my real purpose? Like, I just don't think it actually would have been net positive. Maybe not. I don't know. So I just have to trust the fact that, like, you know, we're on our journey. We're doing different things. We're moving to different levels in terms of where we're going. And quite often we're actually coming down levels. So when I say that, it's not like to say that we're going up and we're fucking leaving people behind and it's a big ego thing or anything. It's like, no, we're actually, it's nothing personal to the hair industry. It's absolutely nothing personal. It's energetic. It's not personal, babes. It's energetic. So we're just, yeah.
It's a beautiful segue to like how we filter that, the shoulds, right? Like when people are telling us, oh, you should do this, you should be doing that. It's like, I've said it on the pod before, you know, my filter is I look at their lives and I think, do I like what that's doing for you? And 90% of the time it's a no, because all of these people are stressed, tired, overwhelmed, anxious, worried about appeasing the opinion of others. It's like, okay, well, if that's what it's doing to you, I don't want that in my life. And now there's really only one person. I'm trying to think of someone who wasn't like that. I think, name drop moment, I think Damian Ronaldo, who's on your team, he's like the only dude that does hair to a ridiculously high level, better than 99% hairdressers, and he's so chill about it. He's just like, yeah, cool. You know, now if he gives me advice, I'll be like, probably going to listen, because it seems to be working. Now, I'd still have to put it through my filter, but I'm probably not going to take advice. I'll listen. I'll always listen, because you never know. I never know what I'm going to learn from someone, but doesn't mean I'm going to adopt that straight away. I always got to put it through my filter. And my first line of filter is, do I like what that's doing for you? If you're stressed, if you're overwhelmed, if you're a wreck, if you're anxious, I'm not sure. So that's where it comes from a lot of the time. Come and join me. Come and do this. Come and make me feel okay about what I'm doing. Pretty dangerous.
Dangerous game. So, you know, I was very excited. I was more excited to make this announcement than I was about winning Men's Hairdresser of the Year. And, you know, what a ridiculous and crazy 8 years it's been. I don't even think one podcast can do it justice to, like, if we were to dig into what happened in the last 8 years. I don't really particularly want to. If anyone wants to do that, you can go back and scroll through Instagram. It's all there, the whole lot of it. The story is documented the whole way through. And, you know, it's the definition of questioning the blueprint. It's the definition of going against the grain. It's the definition of doing things that haven't been done, even when people told me that I can't do it. You know, I've had it all. I've had people trying to cancel me. I've had people do it all. So look, it's been a mad 8 years, and, you know, the one thing that I was disappointed about in terms of not winning men's hairdresser of the year was like having my few words to say, my minute long speech, you know. I think that was kind of one of the things that I was a bit like, fuck, that would have been nice to just shout out all of the people who have kind of helped me along the way, you know. I probably wouldn't have announced my retirement there and then. I probably still would have waited for Unlimited, because it's probably not the appropriate place to do it. But yeah, it's a very freeing feeling. You know, I walked away from the other night thinking, I don't know how long more I'll be in rooms like this. And, you know, if I'm working with Dyson, probably will be. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. It's going to be really interesting. But what is happening next is we're putting all of our attention and energy and focus into the coaching and mentorship space for people in our industry to help them figure out and plan for their journeys as well, and their pathway to joy, fulfillment, contentment, how they want to live their lives. And, you know, I'm going to have a bit of a 6-month somewhat hiatus from Australia, and just, you know, we're going to go to Bali for 4 months, going to be there for 4 months, going to be in Ireland for a couple of months doing a few things over there, and Amsterdam. We're doing a few shows internationally next year. But really now, like, we're taking the hair out of the shows completely as well. Like, anything that we do going forward with the hair industry is mainly without hair. Like, we had a session with Susie and her team yesterday in Sydney, which was quite an interesting one to dig into. It's funny how that went. Like, we didn't really debrief it too much since. But we started off the class, we had, I don't know, there must have been like a 30 or 40 slide presentation. We got to slide number 2 and we stayed there for 3 hours, and then we had to leave. The class was over. And one of Susie's team members said at the end of the class, he was like, that's the best hair course I've ever done, and there wasn't a single section of hair taken. And it's like, well, at a certain point, what's more important to talk about? And what's more important to dig into, and what's going to actually give you the best results? Just being able to do another haircut sometimes isn't going to cut it, literally.
And when you do clear up that space between the ears, when you do allow yourself to learn to think more efficiently, to getting better at the thing is so much easier. It's actually so much easier to get better at cutting hair when you can just think. Like, just trying to get better at hair might slow you down, because if you don't, maybe it's not the new technique you need to learn. Maybe it's just freeing up some thinking space. And I've witnessed that over the years for myself. And I say it in classes, it's like, guys, it's not so much about all new things that I can teach you. It's about how I can help you to think about this. That's what separates us from a lot of people. And that's why we've done what we've done in our careers. We just think about things differently. Think about things more efficiently, faster, more. We don't waste as much energy in our decision making because we have formulas around it. And I give the example. I'm like, guys, can you all cut a straight line with a pair of scissors? Yep. Can you all operate a pair of clippers? Yep. Okay, you can do what I do then. That's it. You've got all the ingredients. I just got to show you now how to think about these things. And once you free up that space, it's like a rocket ship. It's like, oh, okay, I'm a lot better than I thought I was.
I always say I don't want to put more things into my brain than are already in there that are going to serve me in a less efficient way moving forward. Because even when it came to main stage, right, like if we reflect on the prep for main stage, I did absolutely nothing groundbreaking there. Like I didn't even want to put effort, and this sounds bad, and I don't mean it to sound bad. I didn't want to put unnecessary effort into the hair because it's just not how I want to spend my time, regardless of where I am. You know, I was conserving energy like the whole weekend, and it's like I don't want to be, you know, doing all of this crazy hair was like last year at HFAs, not this year, the year before, when we went and did the backstage stuff, like the prep with Michael and Damien for the runway show. It was a great experience, and I'm really grateful to have had the experience, and I'm really grateful that you were there to help, because if you weren't, I would have been fucked. But I knew after that experience, I don't want to do this again. I was like, nah, like, I don't want to do this again, because I mean this in the nicest way possible, and this is I can say it because, number one, it's my podcast, and number two, it's my fucking opinion. But I don't care. Like, I don't care enough to do it again. You know, I don't care to, like, do the crazy hair and get the attention for that. Like, I don't care. Like, even if you look at my collection, like, you know, Leigh did over half of the hair on it, and the other half was done with the fucking wind blower thing, you know? And just capturing a moment on the camera. It's not like, yeah. Like, the part that I did like was the organization of it, the conceptualizing of it, the bringing it together. Like, I'm more of an operations guy than I am a hair guy. And, like, I don't get jazzed up by the hair stuff anymore. It just doesn't do it for me. It just doesn't do it for me. So, doesn't mean I can't do it if I need to, but that's just where I'm at. And I think there's nothing, you know, a lot of the time I'm careful who I share this opinion with, or this view with, because a lot of people will start to serve up those opinions again and just be like, oh no, but this is what you're good at. You know, we got it in past businesses too. Oh no, you're just good at this, stick to that. Don't do the podcast. Don't fucking do the mindset stuff. Don't do any of it because you are good at hair and that's all that you're destined to be, in my view of the world. It's like, no. If you know anything about me, if anybody listening to this knows anything about me, you don't tell me what I can't do, because my trauma patterns will come up, and my trauma patterns are good at making me do the things that people tell me that I can't do. But now I'm at the point where I can put it through a filter. So if somebody says, you can't win men's hairdresser of the year, I'd be like, cool, I don't want to win men's hairdresser of the year. I've tried to win it and I didn't. So, and I did a collection which was worthy of winning 90% of years that it would have been entered. So, I mean, I'm not really in the opinions game anymore, you know, and subjectivity, like, yeah, I'm not in it for that. We've got a different mission. We're moving in a different direction, and that's totally fine. And we want to help as many people as we possibly can in getting to a place where they can actually enjoy it more, because it's a lot more enjoyable. Like, when we went backstage and we were at main stage, we could enjoy the whole experience more because we cared less about the hair. It was more about, okay, what am I actually going to deliver in terms of what I'm going to say? Like, I needed to regulate myself a little bit better so that I can connect with the audience from a personal brand standpoint, rather than doing amazing hair and having nothing good to say. What's more important? I don't know. You decide.
It was beautiful. We could be present, you know, backstage. We were present. I felt like we were super present, having great conversations, even lending a hand to other people where we needed to. Like, just wasn't overwhelming. We weren't making it mean something that it didn't mean. There wasn't a ton of like proving energy in it. It was like, look, you're here for a reason. This is what we're good at, or we've got really good at. Now it's in like, what am I going to communicate now? And I think that was a big part of it. It's like, what was the communication of what was actually going on? That was really huge. And that was a topic that kept coming up yesterday about communication, how that's such a big part of life for all humans and everything that they do. And that's why I think it came off so well. Like, I remember you coming off stage and you're like, oh, I didn't really do anything that groundbreaking. But I was there filming it and listening to the words and paying attention to the room. And again, that's what you can do when you're regulated and you're present. I'm tuning to the energy of the room, who's here, looking around and thinking, yeah, these people probably aren't thinking this way or having these types of conversations. They're just so locked into the doing the thing and with the proving energy that there's not enough thought space to think about the communication, the articulation, and what it actually means, what it actually is doing, and how it comes across. And I think that comes from a service mindset. Like, we a lot of people we spoke to were going on to main stage, like, I'm so nervous, so nervous. Well, what's one of our lines? You replace the nervous with service. When you come from that service mindset, it's like, oh, now I can really deliver. I don't have to overcompensate with what I'm doing with my hands. I can really deliver something that people can take home with them, which is really cool to see.
I felt like about 1% of what I can say was shown on main stage. Probably 1%, because even speaking to some people afterwards who were giving us feedback on it and saying, oh, it was great, really enjoyed the show, like it was cool, it was nice to see men's hair up there, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but it was much similar to the hair festival experience I had this year. It's like, I can't really connect with anybody, so I don't know if it's actually worth anybody's time. Like, I'm not getting any feedback. All I really saw was the clock ticking down and a lot of, for the most part, like blank faces, and like they might have been taking stuff away, but the education that I've surrounded myself with in the last couple of years outside of the hair industry, it's like I can't write fast enough for what these people are saying and how valuable it is, and that's the kind of stuff that I want to show. But then I have to remember where I am and who I'm working for and what room I'm in, because it's not always a good thing to just be that person and go off and just do your own thing in those moments. So like, it's just, a bit of situational awareness as well, a bit of emotional intelligence to just know when the right time is to say certain things. And I feel like right towards the end I started to kind of come into a little bit more of me. That's where the 1% kind of showed. And up to that point, it's like, yeah, I actually didn't feel the need to prove anything to anybody, which was a really interesting place for me to be in, because up to this point in my career, there has been times where I felt that, for sure. And now I don't feel the need to do that at all. Like, I don't need to overly explain who I am, what I do. Just don't need to explain anything. It's like, the less I explain, the more power is in it, and it was more about regulation and not just hiding behind the hair. Like, yes, I'll deliver some tips when it comes to hair, but it's like, how am I going to be regulated and enjoy the experience? And I can remember 90% of the experience because I was calm. I don't think I was even like sweating. Sometimes in those situations it's like, oh, I'm like sweating. I don't think I was even sweating. And that's, a room of the who's in the hair industry. Like, anybody was in that room in the hair space. So,
but I got that it didn't feel like that. It felt very regular, even like just sensing your energy. And even for me, I was totally calm. I just knew you were going to be fine. It's like, this is just what we do. And it's not about the hair. It's about what goes on in here. And there are even people saying it to you at the awards, you're delivering your award. There are people saying, well, how are you so calm? Like, how do you do it? It's like, well, a lot of great leaders, they speak less, but when they do speak, it's profound. Well, how can they do that? Well, there's a lot of years training the brain. How do you think? How do you stay regulated? How am I going to communicate what's on my mind and articulate accurately and directly? And I think that really showed. I think it really showed, and that can replace a lot of what's actually going on in the hands, which is amazing. But thinking back to that show, like, it was more of a show. I think to call it an educational event, in the way that we know education it's not overly accurate. I think maybe it needs to be more of a show, a big stage show, and then a few tips and tricks thrown in there as it goes on. I think we've lost. I think we've lost the hair show. I think education's in vogue. It's been in vogue. Everybody wants to be doing education. It's like, how much can you really learn in a 300 to 500 person auditorium looking at a stage? Like, I went in before you went on just to help set up the stage, and there were people doing color education. You could not see a damn thing they were doing. They were talking about zigzag sections and putting this there, and it's like, you can't see what's going on. It's impossible. So why don't they just turn it into a show and think of maybe a more articulate way to do it? But education's in vogue, and I guess it sells tickets, but how effective is it really? If you ask people that come away from that, well, what did you learn from the color education? I don't know. Learned some new buzzwords.
Yeah, it's just so like short too, right? Like 45 minutes. And like if I really boil it down, like I would have had less than 15 minutes myself for my part of it, because Pete was explaining a lot more about what he was doing with the hair, because the hair was more intricate. Like, he had more things to talk about when it came to the hair, and most of the room was hairdressers. So I kind of just let it be. I let it happen, because that's just how people were going to get the most value from the session. But yeah, look, it was ultimately a really cool experience to be there, to be the only person doing men's hair there, to be the first person representing men's hair there. I know you were there last year for main stage with Fame Team, but it wasn't like a men's session. So, to do that, that's a pretty cool milestone, like, ticked off, and, I looked around at one moment during the show, and I just seen Dyson on the screen, and I was like, fuck, that's kind of cool, isn't it? Like, just up here doing a show with Dyson, one of the biggest brands in the world. And, if I went back to 2018 or 2019, when I went to Hair Expo, was it time? Not festival, it was Hair Expo. I remember getting these little square cards. There's one of them up there on my whiteboard right now. But I remember getting these little square cards and being like, I'm going to give my card to somebody at Dyson, and I want to be like the first person like who's doing men's hair with Dyson. That was like something that I said years and years ago. And then it came into fruition, here we are, however many years later, four years later, and, they're putting their trust in me to be that person who's up there, delivering awards for them, presenting awards for them and doing these shows. So it was a great way to kind of cap off, that side of my career, and I'm really excited to see where things go next. I'm not the type of person who hangs around in places for too long. Even within that 8 years, like, things changed pretty rapidly and pretty quickly. And sometimes I get anxious thinking about my future, like, because I'm like, how many more times am I going to keep rapidly changing things? But, my ability and my skills and my education, the buckets that I've filled up over the years, like with my knowledge, allows me to make these decisions and move with a lot of conviction when I do, and not retreat and go back to just doing what I know because it's easy. It allows me to actually, create new opportunities, create new pathways of working, because I've educated myself enough to be able to see it differently. And what a journey it's been. I've lost myself, found myself, done it all in the last 8 years. And now I just want to help that next generation that are going through something similar to, iron out some of the experiences that I've had and that we've had, so that they don't have to go through those experiences either. They can just sail past them. It's probably still valuable for them to go through them, but when they do, at least they're equipped and knowing, okay, so this is what's really going on. This is what's really going on.
We say it all the time, you know, that the thing isn't the issue. Cutting hair isn't the problem. It's the utility that we do it in. It's the capacity that we do it in. You know, the way that classic barbershop model's gone, and, you know, the utility that people give it is like the stats show, the average career span of a hair professional now is 8 years. I'd say it's even less for a lot of barbers. Like, show me a lot of barbers that have been doing it more than 10 years and aren't sick of it. Like, there's not many. There's not many. And the ones that have, well, they're probably more business owners or people that have found a way to transcend it a little bit. But, you know, strapped behind a chair, there's not a lot of people do it past that 10-year mark. Why? Because it doesn't really have a lot of utility past a certain point. Once you get good at the thing and that becomes easy, you stop growing. Like, what does Tony Robbins say? One of the human needs is growth. And I think that's what I see with you. You got so good at doing hair, well, men's hair, that it's easy now. You know, I've seen you take a couple of months break from doing a haircut. You go and do it, and you do it better than you did it last time. It's like, it's just in there. You never forget how to do it. It's like riding a bike. So what happens then? The growth stops. And where are you now? Where are we now? We're finding ourselves in a new area of growth, which is much more exciting and much more fulfilling. And that I think that's just as simple as it needs to be, and it's totally okay, totally fine. But I do think that's not to be ignored. And anybody listening to this, like Eoin always says, try not to disassociate with that, associate with that, because there's a lot of things that we've learned over the years that we can help you with. You know, not necessarily to avoid, but just to help you think about. So if something does arise, at least you're primed to deal with it, because there's nothing worse than doing the same thing expecting a different result. Most people think, I got to learn another haircut. It's another thing. It's another thing. It's another thing. Same thing, expecting a different result, and most people wind up unhappy about it, or they get so much resentment for their shop or the business owner or whatever, and they go, that's it, I'm going to go and open my own shop, realizing that that's not the answer either. And so, yeah, I think that's the power of where we're at right now, is like there's so many lessons to be had and to be shared with the future generations, so they can go on and build it even better. We always say, don't we, the hair industry is so close to being fantastic. So close to being fantastic, but there's a few changes that I think need to happen. And a lot of them are from a place of empowerment, disempowerment, and energizing or not. A lot of the stuff we do is disempowering, and a lot of stuff we do is not energizing. And that's dangerous.
Funny, the old hair industry, isn't it? Like, it's kind of ran by everybody but the people doing the hair. It's ran by the brands, or it's ran by the clients, and the people in the middle, which is us, for the most part, tend not to have a say. But like, we have all of the say. So if we stop doing it, then what? What happens then? So exactly. So the utility, like you always speak about, you know, the utility of it changing is huge. And like, that's where the empowerment of the stylist comes back into it, you know? You know, I don't know when the last time I made an order from a product brand. Like, I don't need that shit, you know? And then same thing with clients. Can't remember the last time I took orders from a client either. Don't need that shit either. So like, what we're trying to help people do is like mitigate that and navigate that whole paradigm in a loving way. You know, like, you don't have to be a dickhead about it. You know, something we spoke about in the last couple of days with Susie and the team as well is like, you know, the whole getting rid of toxic clients, or getting rid of clients that you don't want to work with, or whatever it is. You can do it in such ways where it's still got love in it. Like, you don't have to do it where you're being a dickhead. But there's nothing wrong with standing up for your boundaries and what you believe in, and like, you know, it's like we're having this conversation at the moment at home, right? Like, and this is a bit off topic, but about doing certain things and going to certain parties or certain people's birthdays and shit like that, right? And like, I don't want to go, like, and that's a good enough reason. I just don't want to. I don't need to explain myself anymore. And like, why can't the hair industry be like that? You know, like, the whole inclusivity thing is actually making people not include themselves in that. So you're excluding yourself to include everybody else. It makes no sense. Like, it's counterintuitive, the whole thing. So sometimes just not wanting to cut somebody's hair is okay, but it doesn't mean you have to say that to them in that exact way. And it doesn't mean it has to be abrupt or reactive, because that's something we spoke to yesterday as well, is the reactiveness of it. It's like, you know, no, have a plan, be proactive, recognize it, recognize that it's not what you want. Like, another thing that we spoke to yesterday was, it's very hard to know what you want in your life when you haven't ever thought about it. If you don't know what you want, you can't create the life that you want. You'll just have the life that you have, and that's it.
And further that, most people never even think about how that's going to feel. They might see, some people might think about the things that they want, but they don't often think about how that's going to feel. And then they're chasing the things. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. And something to add to your point there of like, that whole thing of just trying to accommodate everyone, that actually takes choice out of off the menu. And this is what I think is very counteractive to joy, because there's a fantastic psychological model called parts therapy, and Flynn Skidmore uses this, and one of his frameworks to building a life of joy is to work out your preferences, and you get to choose how often you do those things to get those feelings more often than not. So just trying to do everything for everybody and include absolutely everyone takes choice off the menu, unless that's what you've chosen. Now, at the moment, the narrative, that's not choice, that's just been forced on people. Oh, you have to include everybody. Whoa. Wait a second. What about my choices and my preferences and the way I get joy out of life? I might not get joy out of serving absolutely everyone. I think it's okay. It's okay if you only want to do buzz cuts, only do buzz cuts. If you don't want to cut any long hair, don't cut any long hair. It's okay. You don't have to do it. And I think that brings a life of joy. But the day you do want to do it, have a plan. Have a nice little run-in. Make it time-bound. And then you know that this situation isn't going to last forever. And we got something to work towards. There's growth. It feeds into my human needs. Life is joyful that way. It's exciting that way. But doing these things to no end is not enjoyable. It's disempowering, and it's not energizing. So really important to think about that one. And that was coming up a lot in our conversations yesterday with our mindset session. Making choices, making preference. And it's okay to have those boundaries.
Ultimately, I feel like it just comes down to communication. It literally just comes down to communication, and it's either communicated well or it's communicated not so well, and that's what either causes the reaction or, acceptance. It's either reacted to or it's accepted through the communication and how it's communicated, how frequently it's communicated, how far in advance it's communicated. There's a lot of factors to it, so it's okay. Like when I basically, in September it was, so it was around the time we were at Tony Robbins when I called it, when I was just like, all right, I'm not doing clients anymore. That's it. I'm done. I feel like my fucking leg is stuck in the barbed wire fence, the barbering wire fence. Like I can't move on to the next part of my life and my career and where I want to take this whilst I'm still doing clients. So it's time for me to just make that leap. And there's, a handful of clients that I've been doing for years and years, weeklies, that I had to break up with in that moment. And I was like, I need to do it now before I go back to Melbourne, because if I go back, I'll be giving them like a day's notice. So, you know, communication. So like, but they had, it was in their mind for a long time, you know. I would have been planting the seeds for months, like in conversations, just being like, letting them know that like this isn't going to last forever. Like something's going to change soon. And like you always say now, like your clients know it as well. It's like they know that there's a day that's coming very, very soon that it's going to be shut down, game over. Like you'll have to find a new barber. And like for me, you know, it was still done in a respectful way. It's not like I went and sent him a message being like, bro, I'm done, see you later. Like, hasta la vista, you know? It wasn't like that. It really wasn't. And you saw the message, you saw how much care I put into the messages as well. And I did still have feelings around it, because it's an identity shift. You know, it's a literal identity shift to like move from being that person to not being that person anymore. And yeah, like now even, you know, like look at my Instagram name, Eoin McCarthy Hair. It's like, how much fucking hair do I do? Like does that need to change? I don't really do much hair. It's like, is it me that's on my Instagram, or is it my crop? Or my beard that's making all of the Eoin McCarthy's hair? Maybe I need to like speak from the hair that I have on my body. I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things.
I heard a great quote the other day on the communication piece, and I can't remember who said it, but it's in terms of like our lack of communication skills and what goes into communication. It said, those who can't communicate think everything is an argument, and those who lack responsibility and self-awareness think everything is an attack. And I thought that was so good. Those who lack communication think everything is an argument. Those who lack responsibility and self-awareness think everything is an attack. And it's so true. And learning to, I think that's where the fear comes from a lot of hairdressers and barbers of telling their clients or putting up boundaries, because their previous experiences in life is like they've been attacked back because the person can't converse. They can't have a conversation or take self-awareness and responsibility and go, well, you know what? I wouldn't expect them to cut my hair forever. This is life. They got their own things going on. They got their own progress path. They got their own growth journey. Good on you. Except that, you know, then they turn it into attack, like in a personal thing. And it's like the inclusivity thing. It's not an attack. Those who can't take responsibility or have self-awareness or communicate, it's not an attack or an argument. It's just, this is where I'm going. Like, it's been lovely. It's been great. And like you said, there's emotion in it. It's been a great time. But I'm moving on. And that's okay. That's totally okay. Because the worst thing, and look, I think the reason we speak to these things, we spend so much time in the trenches of learning what it takes to be a great leader. And a great leader doesn't appease everybody. They lead, and when it's bad, they're the best. And I think that's just one of the things that we do well, is like, okay, this is where I'm going, and it's been wonderful. And see ya. Happy to keep in touch and converse and whatever we need to do, but this part of my life isn't serving my highest values anymore. I got to pivot. I got to change. See you later. I think that's the other thing. Tony Robbins spoke to that, didn't he? You know, how change hasn't been normalized. Like, you know, growing up for me, it was always, you have one job and you do this one thing and you do it really well and you do it forever. It was change wasn't normalized. It wasn't, oh, Leigh, try hair for like 2 years and then we'll debrief, see if you like it. And if you don't, we'll do something different. Do that for another year. Debrief, see if you like it. If you don't, we'll see, see what else, someone else you enjoy. That wasn't the conversation. That was like a weak person. That was like somebody who gives up, somebody who quits. And that wasn't okay. That wasn't seen as like noble. But what we know from leadership is it's okay. As long as you have a framework, you have a plan, you can communicate it and you do it with love. It comes from the heart. And I think that's the caveat for all of this stuff, is like all of it comes from the heart. You know, there's nothing that we do that doesn't come from the heart. It's all from a place of care. It's all from a place of love. And it's all because we just love to see people. We prefer to see people living lives of joy, not misery. And sadly, you know, we've touched, thousands of Barbers' lives now. And there's not been a ton of joy. I haven't met too many people that are overjoyed with the way that their life looks.
Well, when it gets past the surface level, when we were with them for long enough, you know, and now like we can detect it pretty quickly, but you know, in the past I wouldn't have been able to detect it because I wasn't there myself. And you know, doing the hair education and doing it all was just a way of me convincing myself that I was in a place where I was happier. And now we can just detect it a little bit quicker. But like the facade will still be up, you know, the walls will still be up, the act and the mask will still be on. And I just, it doesn't do it for me anymore. It just really doesn't. So I'm really excited to like move into this next phase of life and see where the wind takes me, and you know, from a barber, like to be able to do what I'm about to do and go to another country and work remotely and, you know, make more money than I've ever made from cutting hair and not doing any hair is wild. I would have never been able to imagine it, like getting to this point, but it's an amalgamation of all of the education that I've received myself over the years. You know, without the education that I've received, I wouldn't have been able to do this, and that is my biggest asset, you know, like that quote of generational wealth is no longer in assets, it's not passed down in assets, it's passed down in knowledge and education. You know, like if somebody, typical story, right? Like millionaire or billionaire passes all of their things down to the next generation, and then the next generation after them gets nothing because they haven't passed down the knowledge or the education of how to maintain those things or how to create more of those things. I saw this video this morning. It was pretty cool, actually. And this guy just was asking people on the streets of America, like how much money like they've made in the last year or whatever it was. And this guy said, 13 million or something like that. And then the guy was like, oh, cool. And he was like, what do you think is the biggest difference between like rich people and poor people? And if the guy pulled his backpack off, and it was just a regular backpack, it was nothing fancy or special or anything. And he was like, if I was to sell you this backpack for $1,000 right now, what would your answer be? Or would you buy it? And the guy was like, no. And he was like, you see, that's the biggest difference between rich people and poor people. Rich person would have asked, what's in the backpack? Like, what's the value of it? He was like, what if there was $100,000 in this backpack right now? And you would have just missed 99,000 because you're not willing to look at what's actually in the backpack and what is the value of what I'm going to get from it. So you're thinking about how much something's going to cost you rather than what something's going to make you. That's the biggest difference between rich people and poor people. And I was like, that's brilliant. I was like, and that is brilliant. It's like, okay, well, the way I'm looking at the hair space now, it's like, well, what's in the hair space? Or like the way I've looked at education historically, like I've spent over $100,000 on my education in the last couple of years, you know, between everything, between, you know, being in the carbon hair space, like all of the different coaches that I've invested in up to today. We're even about to join a new coaching program ourselves, you know, which is going to cost us, I don't know, what, another 25 grand or something for the year. Like it's the biggest asset that we have because we create more assets with it.
And that's one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest objections we see in coaching, isn't it? Is price point. People, it's expensive. Well, I hear that word all the time, expensive. But a great listener can hear behind the words, and what I hear is, I can't afford that. I have a money story around that. It's not that it's expensive. Our container's $5,000. Like, any great coach out there who's been doing it for long enough, you'd be paying $100,000 for the year. Like, it's a lot of money. And so, 3 to 5K is not a lot of money. But for those who have an interesting money story from a place of lack, it is a lot of money. Oh, it's expensive. No, what you really mean is you can't afford it. So what can we help you do? What's the value of what we can do? We can help you to think about things differently so you can afford them, and you don't end up in this scenario again in the future. And you do turn into that wealthy mind, not the poor mind. Because again, like the guy with the backpack, you might just look at it from the outside and go, nah, that's expensive. Yeah, but what's inside? What's the value? And then what's your life going to look like after this?
I don't even think it's a case of them not being able to afford it. I think it's a case of them not being willing to think about how they can afford it. I couldn't afford the $100,000 of education that I spent my money on, but I found a way to make it work. And that in itself, my friends, is business. That's how you do business. If you can't put together $5,000 in business, you may as well stop right now. If you don't have $5,000 to spend on your education in business probably isn't for you. Like, and I'm just gonna put it out there as like that's a caveat. Like, and sorry if it offends anybody, but it's probably not for you if you can't pull $5,000 out of somewhere. A tax deductible $5,000. And then, beg the question of, is it expensive? Well, if I've spent 100,000 and you've spent over your lifespan probably the same, if not more, is it expensive to spend $5,000 to get $200,000 worth of information that's condensed and put through a filter for you? It sounds more expensive than it is expensive. So, but it comes back to, like the point of today's podcast as well, as like looking at things in a different way and like just being able to see it from a different perspective. And like, that's where my creativity goes to now. And like, speaking into the coaching space and moving forward, like the same way we speak about haircuts, right? Like, it's as cheap as it's ever going to be. Like, it's only going to get more expensive. Like, we haven't even started to share client results yet. And like, this is the thing, once the client results start to roll in, which we have ready to go, like anyone who's seen the AMP landing page, there's some results on there, but like, okay, let's break down the results even further and like start looking at some real tangibles, like, and if it's the money thing. But that's just a lazy way of thinking as well. When someone says, oh, it's too expensive, or oh, it's expensive, it's lazy. It's actually fucking lazy, because what they're doing is they're saying, I don't want to think about how I can make that money. And it's very like it's just lack. It's just lack.
Yeah, it's a lack.
What? It's a lack mindset.
To the point of money, something that I posted today, and something that we were speaking about over the weekend. There's enough money in barbering as an employee even to set yourself up in life. You just got to know what you're doing with it. Even further, get creative with it. And that's it. But how, oh no, bro, like I only make this, bro, I don't know my own shop, blah, blah. Okay. That's okay. We'll tell that to Robert Kiyosaki. Tell that to Rich Dad Poor Dad. He'll say, well, show me what you're doing with your money. Show me what's happening with it, and I can tell you where you can clean it up. Now, again, that takes responsibility. That takes a change of money story. But it's so doable. And for a lot of people, they're better off staying employed because a lot of things are a lot easier that way. Banks they'll lend to you a lot easier. Once you get into business, it gets a bit harder for the first few years. Like all these things, you can set yourself up so well if you give it a solid 5 years with a plan. But again, like you said, generational wealth isn't passed down in money, it's passed down in knowledge. The barbering world, and this is what we do, guys. We care. We've seen the issues. We've done it for years. I'm 18 years in. Owen's just nearly reached a decade in hair. You know, between us, we've only got 30 years of experience between us. And it's like, this stuff isn't getting passed down. The knowledge isn't getting passed down. More haircuts, more working hard is not going to do it. If it was going to do it, it would have by now. So we have to think about things differently. And that is where we come in and help you to think about things differently. And all it takes is just to let the guard down, have a little bit of humility, associate with the information, allow your world to be molded ever so slightly. Let the ego just put him away for a day and just let some things come in. And then life could look radically different for you in 12 months' time. 2024 is right around the corner. You know, anybody listening to this, have a good hard think about, do you still want to be in this position this time next year? Because if you don't take action, you will be. It's just the hard facts of it. It's the hard truth. And to me, that doesn't feel good. I love where I'm at right now, but I know there's even better places we can be. And I love the way that feels too. Growth. Human needs.
Exactly. And, you know, if you're to look at it from a business perspective and to really just crunch the numbers on it as well, like, it's not like we've done too badly there either. So, you know, maybe it's time to start sharing some of the results, because up to now we've been kind of humbly working away on it, but like, there's a reason we can do all of the things we can do. There's a reason why today I can look at the rest of my day and tomorrow and the rest of the week and just do whatever the fuck I want with my week and have more money than I could ever make by cutting hair. And doing it in a very noble way. It's like doing it in a way that feels fulfilling and actually is getting people results. And you know, like, you can't intervene with the world you can't see, right? Like, a lot of the time, if people don't understand it, then they're never going to see it. So it's just about expanding those horizons, looking at things from a different perspective, looking at the world in a different way, listening to people, actually listening, see if you can learn something. Yeah.
And that's the only way we've gotten to where we are. We listen to a lot of people. And like you mentioned, we've paid a lot of money to hear from the best people. You know, and I think that's just where it's at. It's like, I don't know how else to say it. We're doing the hard work for you to distill it down into bite-sized pieces so it's just easy for you. You know, there's no more guesswork. I say it all the time in classes, life is too short to keep guessing. 80-year lifespan, too short to keep guessing. The rate that the world is moving, the rate that technology is moving, we can't keep guessing. It's a fool's game. To keep guessing is a fool's game. Like, what? Why? Invest in your knowledge. More haircuts won't always do it. More hard work won't always do it. More smart work will.
Well, that's the most expensive costs of your life. You know, if you think about how much money you're making this year, most barbers make about 60, 70 grand a year, Australian. That's a very generous way of putting it, you know. So like, that's what I was making when I was a barber. I was making 50 grand, 55 grand a year on paper. And the most expensive cost of my life was not knowing how to get to where I really wanted to be. So for example, you know, in the last couple of businesses that we've had, we've stretched like well into the six figures, and it's like, okay, well, let's just take a blanket statement of 250 grand, right? Like, so 250 grand versus 50 grand. The most expensive cost of my life there is $200,000 a year. $200,000 a year that I didn't know how to make before until I invested in myself in education. So that's just an example there. It's pretty close example. Pretty close to home example, but that's the most expensive cost in your life. So like, sometimes, you know, what Kerwin says, what they all say is like, how long are you going to wait? How bad are you going to let it be? How like, the longer you wait and the longer you deflect what is for you, or like, you're just going to keep waiting, and time is going to keep ticking on by, and you're essentially losing money because of that.
Yeah, your ignorance debt gets higher. Your ignorance tax just keeps growing. And, we said it yesterday in our mindset class, like there's never been a better time than now, because you're never going to have more time than you have now. And things, as we all know, things only get more expensive and things only keep increasing. It's just the way it is. It's the way everything is. Rarely does anything go back down. Just like interest rates now, it's like all these things. Yeah, they come down a little bit, but they might not go way back like they were. It all keeps going. Those who adapt survive. Those who don't get left behind.
So yeah, we'll keep on adapting. We'll keep pushing forward. That's the way I like to think about this in terms of where things are going next for us and our business and for my career within this space. And like, who knows how much longer we'll be even in the hair industry. Like we've had a couple of people come to our classes and say, we asked the question of why are you here, and it's like, I'm here to soak up as much as I possibly can whilst you're still doing this, because they know that we're not going to be doing it forever. So it's an important time to get involved. And yeah, it might sound like a sales pitch, but you're going to get your value out of it. So yes, it is a sales pitch. Take some fucking action and book yourself one of our courses next year, because otherwise you're going to just keep going around in the same circles. And it's fine if you want to keep going around in the same circles, getting the same results. By all means, I'm nobody to tell you not to. But if you want more from your life, reach out. Or one message away, a couple of numbers on a screen away, that you'll be able to find somewhere. We've had people come to our courses, take the coaching container out of it. We've had people come to our courses and put their prices up. We've had people join fucking free trainings and put their prices up, and now they're making more money because of a slight mindset shift. So what are you fucking waiting for? Just get involved. So now that that's out, now that the cat's out of the bag, and fucking I'm meow, me fucking how, meow. If you thought things were on a level 10 already, wait till you fucking see what's about to come. It goes to new levels now. So, but no, it's been a pleasure. Hair industry, thank you to everybody who's been part of it up to now. Excited to see where it goes next. This is not a goodbye, it's just the context is changing. And I look forward to having that conversation with you as well, Leigh, in the next podcast.
Tune in for episode 11.
11, new beginnings.
Well, that's it for another episode of the Unlimited podcast. Unlimited adaptations.
Yes.
Stay happy.
In the pursuit of no limits. We're in the pursuit of no limits, and that's a beautiful thing.
Stay happy, stay joyful, stay unlimited. Like, subscribe, comment. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, my friends.